Well, the end of the year just kind of snuck right up on me before I even realized that I was running out of time to get this filmed. I've got 2 more list films that I need to make before the end of the year. This is my first one. I'm starting off on a happy note. This is going to be my top 10 favorites of 2024. I do have 3 honorable mentions this time, and I'm going to try to be brief, but you guys know how it is with me. Anyway, at least I'm getting off on a positive note. This is going to be about the pure enjoyment of cinema and storytelling. So let's go ahead and get started with the 3 honorable mentions. Obviously, all of this is subjective, but I enjoyed the heck out of Abigail. I watched it. I think I've seen it 4 or 5 times by now, twice on the big screen and at least a couple times at home. And it was just fun. I went into it knowing more than I wanted to because of the stupid trailer, but I was still able to have a pretty good time with it. I enjoyed Melissa Barrera's performance in here. I felt like she was a more engaging, interesting character, and she pulled off a better performance in this movie than in the Scream movies. So there's that. I was also impressed with the acting of the little girl who played Abigail. She did a great job. Roleplay. It's not the highest rated film with most folks, but when I watched it at the beginning of the year, it just clicked with me. I know that some of the stuff was a bit over the top, but I didn't care. It was just fun. I enjoyed the chemistry between the 2 leads. I liked Kaylee Cuoco's performance in here, and it was just silly fun, and I enjoyed it. So it's one of my other honorable mentions. Am I racist? Matt Walsh can be a pretty controversial type of character, or he gets people's undies in a twist at times. And I wasn't initially super interested in watching this, but when I saw that Jeremy Jahns watched it and was treated like a piece of crap by a lot of people, also when I noticed that this was making all the right people mad, I was super curious. So I went and checked it out, and I was surprised at how funny Matt Walsh actually was in here, because I don't think he's that funny of a guy. I mean, I've listened to enough of his stuff. I've read enough of his stuff that I feel like he's a little bit too rigid and inflexible at times, but I thought he pulled off a pretty decent, I want to say, performance in here, because he was acting a part of someone and basically just shining a spotlight on all of the money that is to be made in keeping things like racism alive and well in this country, well, to the best of their ability. And I felt like it was important enough to include, at least in my honorable mentions. Don't know that it'll be anything I'll ever watch again, but it stuck out to me. So there's my list of honorable mentions. Now let's move on to number 10. I went into this not expecting that I would enjoy it, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. The little girl who played the main character was cute as a button, and the Herdman children, while they were definitely rough around the edges, there was a sentimentality about this movie, about them and this movie and the messaging in here that hit all the right notes. And though this is a faith-based type of movie, it wasn't something that was just so in your face and so gooey and sappy and ridiculous. I felt like it was just played very well and something that can appeal to audiences. So this is why The Best Christmas Pageant Ever ends up on my top 10. Number 9. September 5. This is something that I recently saw at Regal's Mystery Movie Monday, and I did a live stream discussion about it, even made a little quick take review about it. But this was based on the terrorist attack, a Palestinian terrorist attack on the Israeli Olympic team in 1972 in Munich, Germany. And this is, interestingly enough, told from the perspective of the people that were in the newsroom at the time, the ABC Sports News team, and how they had to adapt and figure out ways to cover this event and try to be respectful about it to the best of their ability. I mean, nothing like this had ever happened before. This was the first time a terrorist event had ever happened or been broadcast on live TV with 900 million people watching. And they just had to scramble like crazy to figure out, as they went along, what they needed to do. And it was quite interesting. It's not a very long film, but I do feel like it's worth checking out. And that's my number 9. Okay, number 8. My Old Ass, another Regal mystery movie that I went into not expecting to enjoy, and found that this was surprisingly touching and did elicit a tear or two from me. The lessons that the main character experienced or went through, and yet she also had something of value that she could teach her older self, because this is like she's communicating with a 30+ year older version of herself. And it was just interesting to see how the main character, how she started to change and to think about the more things that are more important in life than just being silly and hanging around with friends. What I'm trying to say is, the value of family and love and stuff like that. Sounds a little sappy. There are some moments it's really pulls at the heartstrings, but I felt like this was something that moved me enough that it warranted being included on my top 10. And that's my number 8. Okay, number 7. Wolves. Wolves made my most anticipated for 2024, and I was really looking forward to watching it on the big screen. Unfortunately, it did not come to the big screen. It's on Apple TV Plus. From the moment I sat down and watched it, and I did watch it pretty much in one go, I had just like the biggest grin on my face because it was so much fun. The chemistry between George Clooney and Brad Pitt and how they played off each other, and the comedic, just the little teeny tiny nuances of their performance, like a head tilt or a smirk on the face or a comment thrown out. It was so much fun to me. I really wish that I could have watched this on the big screen. Not that this is necessarily anything that absolutely warrants a big screen experience, but I feel like it would have been even more enjoyable. Definitely think it's worth checking out, especially if you like these two. They work really well together, and it showed here. All right, number 6. The Fall Guy. This was fun, y'all. I watched this twice on the big screen and at least once at home. This is something that I do want to add to my collection. I don't have it yet. I don't know why I haven't gotten around to it, but anyway, I don't have it yet. But Emily Blunt, Ryan Gosling. I'm not huge on Ryan Gosling. He's okay. I don't dislike him. He just doesn't really do much for me as an actor, but I thought he was really good in here. He was funny. She was funny. This was very loosely based on a TV show from the 80s. Really the only things that were the same was his name, maybe her name, but their characters were completely different types of people than they were in the show. So, don't go into it expecting it to be a carbon copy of that, because it wasn't. It's kind of its own thing. Just the shenanigans that they get involved in and the stuff that they have to try to figure out. It was a love letter to filmmaking also, because that was really cool to watch. If you love movies like people like I do, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you really love movies. So if you love movies and you haven't seen this yet, give it a go. It's a crazy, entertaining ride. All right, that's my number 6. Number 5. I'm going through this list pretty fast, aren't I? Late Night with the Devil. I'm still kicking myself for not being able to interview David Dastmalchian when this movie came around. When I was getting ready to screen it, I wouldn't have been able to have time enough to watch it and interview him just because of work and everything, but that's all I think about now when I see this. But that's not why this is on my top 10. This is on my top 10 because I remember hearing about this year before, and I was really interested in the premise of this, and I enjoyed it when I watched it. I've seen it multiple times actually, but the first time I watched it, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. I felt like it was very engaging and it was suspenseful without being over the top or heavy-handed, like let's say with stuff like The Score, because this is something that's supposed to be sort of a found footage-ish type of thing where it's showing this last broadcast on this show when this guy's gonna try to summon a demon or talk to a demon or whatever, and as you can imagine, things don't go very well. It's not a long watch, it's only about an hour and a half, but if you like David Dastmalchian, this was like his first role with him as a lead character, and I felt like he did a fine job in here, and the girl who played Lily was super impressed with her performance. So yeah, had to put it on my top 10 list. Okay, you guys, number 4. Sing Sing. Another movie that was a Regal mystery movie. That's 3 so far, I think. Okay, there's another one that's going to show up. But another movie that I wouldn't have necessarily chosen to watch on my own, but because this was a Regal mystery movie and I do a live stream discussion with deleted scenes, sometimes Paul from Off the Cover and Kyle, and I will try to remember to link their channels in the description. But this was based on true characters, and many of the people who played in here, most of the people who played in here were playing versions of themselves because they had served in Sing Sing prison, including that guy right there to Coleman Domingo's right. Well, my right. I thought he did a great job. I thought everyone in here was fantastic. And I really loved the emotion that this film elicited in me that I would have never expected from a prison movie. I don't like prison movies. I generally tend to avoid them, which is why I never would have chosen to watch this on my own. But there was something about the way it was done, despite the setting, you know, a jail, a terrible, depressing place, right? With awful people around you and the risk of getting hurt by those people around you. And yet this was a sweet little story. I say sweet. You know, the characters were rough. There was some foul language, but this story was beautiful. I used that word a lot when I was doing my review, but I can't think of another way to describe this. It was just so touching. These men were in this program, Rehabilitation Through the Arts, trying to, it was like their lifeline, something to grasp onto and something to basically live for. Their participation in this program and showing how through the power of this program, these people changed and they came to value life more and value themselves more and value those around them more. And the performance that Coleman Domingo turned in here was so good. It was so touching. He was just this wonderful blend of vulnerability, strength, optimism, and then when he reached his lowest point in the story for his character, it was just, you felt so bad for this guy. And I really loved his performance in here so much. I nominated him for Best Actor for the Georgia Film Critics Association, so that's fresh on my mind. I highly suggest watching this. It helps also as an audience member to soften our hearts a little bit when we think about folks in jail, because there is a stigma with people that are spending time in jail, especially when they're spending time in jail for pretty horrible things. Now, most of the people in this story, I don't think they were in jail for really horrific things, but they were definitely headed down a very bad pathway. But I appreciated that this film helped me or reminded me again that these are human beings and that human beings, they're not black or white. 99.9% of us are not black or white as far as our character. There are shades of gray and there's darkness in all of us, and there's also light to be found in all of us, especially people like this. And I really appreciated that message, or the message that I received from this, was something that was so powerful that I loved this movie enough that I put it on my top 10. Okay, number 3. Nosferatu. Okay, y'all. I'm gonna go see this tomorrow with Arturo on the big screen. As of the recording of this, it's Christmas Eve. And I screened this about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. This also made my top 2024. I like vampire movies. Not super crazy about Robert Eggers, but this movie was haunting. It was atmospheric. The cinematography was great. The acting was great. The set pieces were great. The costumes and everything. The eeriness was just, it was so oppressive, but so beautiful at the same time. And I'm looking forward to watching this on the big screen. I toyed with the idea of not filming this until after I'd seen it on the big screen, but it's not really going to change my mind as to how I feel about it. It will just heighten my appreciation for it, I think. But I could not include this movie on my top 10. Okay. Number 2. So this was going to be my number 1 for the longest time. The Bike Riders, another Regal mystery movie that I was not planning to see on my own. It was bike riders, gangs, and all that, and I don't really like those types of stories, but saw this and loved it. Now I'm going to admit, full disclosure, as I did in my review, that I think that part of the reason I have such a strong emotional attachment to this movie is because of my uncle, my one and only uncle, who is not with us anymore, my mom's brother. He was a biker, and he had ridden with the gang that this fictional gang was based off, the Outlaws. Not with them, just he was like a what do you call it? He was like a free agent. He rode with them. My uncle was not a bad guy, and this movie kind of helped reinforce those types of sentiments or feelings that I have about my uncle. This is supposed to be a story about the early days of the early biker gangs, of the first days, or the birth of the biker gangs and the original bikers from back in the day. They would get in trouble and they were rowdy and they would have problems with the law, but they weren't like serious, hardened, terrible criminals. They just wanted to hang and have a good time with each other and share their love of motorcycles. And this movie, I felt, captured that pretty well. It also was quite touching to me that I realized, oh my gosh, the main character's name is Benny. My uncle's name was Ben. I mentioned this in my review. His love interest, her name is Kathy. My mom's name is Kathy. Now, obviously, not the same sort of relationship, but still, it was really just like, oh my gosh, blows my mind. But yeah, this was a great film. I loved it ever since I saw it. And I knew that this was going to be a movie that would be on my top 10. And for the longest time, it held number one. It held number one from the moment I saw it until my actual number one came along and it sort of blew, well, I don't want to say blew Bike Riders out of the water, but it definitely notched it down one because, I figure if I go to see a movie at least 5 times on the big screen, that means something, and it sure did. Holy cow, I had such a blast at the theater watching this. I watched it 5 times on the big screen, and I have a physical copy with me now, and gonna watch it again this weekend when I go visit family. Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, the chemistry, the story's not necessarily the most airtight or most solid or most wonderfulest movie ever, comic book movie ever, what the heck ever. I didn't care. It was so much fun. The cameos, the cinematography, the fight sequences. There were multiple fight sequences that were a lot of fun to watch. I liked the score. I liked how everything was put together. And I liked that in the midst of all this hilarity, which there was a lot of it, and all this violence, which there was a lot of it, it's rated R for a reason, there were moments of tenderness and moments that really pulled on your heartstrings, especially for the character of Wolverine as played by Hugh Jackman. He really brings such depth to this character. He always has. I cannot imagine anyone else being Wolverine. I know eventually it's going to happen, but holy cow, he really has grounded this character and has given us someone that we can root for and also laugh at because he's so ridiculous and hilarious because he's just so, this guy's such a mess. But you can tell he loves this role and it fits him so well. Once I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, I was like, okay, I think this is going to be my number one. I do believe it's going to be my number one. Number one. And yeah, the more the year went on, the more I realized it absolutely was going to be. I went to go see it multiple times, like I said, on the big screen. And it has not been toppled. I have waited till the very end of the year to film this just in case Nosferatu might topple it. But Nosferatu, even though I love it, absolutely love it, it's a fantastic movie, not even that could dethrone Deadpool Wolverine. I love this film. I look forward to continuing to watch it many times. I look forward to watching the behind the scenes stuff and listening to the audio commentary on the Blu-ray. Something else I really appreciated about it was that it was just wanting to give the fans a good time. It didn't want to preach to you or anything like that. Can't really say enough good things about it. If you haven't seen it yet, if you like this type of movie, check it out. Too bad you missed it on the big screen because it was a lot of fun. And that is my list. Top 10 movies, top 10 plus honorable mention movies of 2024. What were yours and what do you look forward to in 2025? I got to make that list. Yeah. I got to make my list and check it twice. Okay, you guys, I don't have anything else to say, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and we'll see you guys later. Adios.